Hey, welcome to the Open House Show. It's Jesse Meadow. I'm your guest. Today we've got a great show for you. We're actually having the leadership team of Schoolcraft Digital jump on. We're going to talk about the state of digital marketing at independent schools, some things that we've been noticing with our clients and prospective clients, as well as some industry standards and norms that we're trying to bring into this industry and how it's helping. It should be a great show all about digital marketing. So without further ado, let's bring on the crew here. All right, and we'll flip it around. Marc Lefton, our head of digital strategy. Chris, obviously, everyone should be familiar with by now. His smiling and beautiful face there.
Hey, Jesse, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Jesse. Chris.
So, we'll try to make this as not weird as we can, as, we talk to each other so frequently throughout the day. But I think there's some great insights that we've come across during our time here. And, before we get to that, there might need to be some sort of, small little reintroduction of ourselves so that they kind of know where we're coming from. So Marc, please let everyone know kind of your journey in marketing and the criterion and how you kind of ended up with us here.
Sure. So I have over 20 years of experience in New York as a creative director, working on some pretty big brands and agencies. Moved to Florida a couple of years ago, started my agency, started working with you guys. And then sort of throughout this journey, I'm a mix of like award-winning creative, but I also got really involved with programmatic media and data, and really see the opportunity to use data creatively for businesses. And it's hard to find that kind of in one person, which I find really exciting, or sometimes even in one agency. Usually an agency is just creative, or they're just data-driven or media-driven, and a client would have to go to multiple vendors and agencies.
That's right.
And bring both to the table.
Yeah, that's great. And honestly, it's been a one-stop shop as far as the help and the ability to kind of create these strategies, build the ads, watch them go through the funnel. I mean, to have someone like yourself on a team and the expertise that you bring is unparalleled, and we can't thank you enough for that stuff. But Chris, what say you? Recap everyone on your journey.
Yeah, I mean, so I think, what are we coming up on? Almost 7-8 months now, Jesse, since we decided to launch Schoolcraft Digital, and I think we've come a long way in a short amount of time. My background is obviously in politics and communications, but really, coming up with marketing strategies, persuasion, things of that nature. And so I think, we've been able to really find the ability to help a lot of our clients, K through 12 schools, be able to digitize their enrollment model. And I think that's been really some of the key successes we've seen in such a short time, because, Marc's got decades of experience in getting, content in front of, target audiences, and being able to just, do a little tweaks and into this market has made a huge difference for a lot of our clients in a short amount of time. Not to mention, we did all this in the middle of COVID. And so there was a lot of things that we had to kind of learn and adjust on the fly. But it's been a great journey. I mean, obviously, some of my background, and you guys know this, so I'm talking to the audience, helping it from the operational logistics on how to get a lot of this stuff in motion and going has been fun and interesting to do. So, that's something that, is exciting for me. But, 7 months in, 8 months in, I think there's a lot of opportunity, not only for our clients, but for ourselves as a firm. And so I'm excited for the next 7-8 months.
Yeah, absolutely. And joining forces and starting things up in the pandemic has been, we like challenges, and that's a big challenge. And if you don't know Marc, this guy, if he doesn't know it, he wants to learn it. If he sees something in passing and he wants to learn it, he dives in. So it was a perfect combination to try to navigate this new terrain with someone with those kind of skill sets. And, Marc, to that point, I mean, this is, kind of your first time building that strategy piece, and how do we digitize that enrollment funnel? What have you found in these past months or so to be an exciting part of trying to, really bring the expertise that you had in marketing in general and digital marketing in general, and then translating that into how we make this work for K through 12 independent schools?
Well, I think a couple things. First of all, like when I had run my own agency, I had clients from every possible business, B2B, B2C, entertainment. And a lot of times what happens is if you run an agency or you work for an agency, we have a surfing client with that. But we do know through all industries is how marketing funnel works. But the ability for us to really dive into one industry and really like master it, and have two partners who worked on the client side in enrollment, giving gut checks on everything about what works and what doesn't work, I think has really fueled our success. And I think what we've seen is that when we're able to control the full funnel for a client, and every client has different needs in terms of maybe their landing pages aren't up to snuff, maybe their creative isn't as good, maybe their media isn't as targeted as it could be. Everyone has a different situation of where their needs are, but it's very easy for us to go in and kind of make those initial tweaks, give us a short-term lift, and then builds that trust where they're willing to have us work through the full year cycle. And enrollment marketing, it's a full year where it just depends on the time of the year, whether applications are coming in or you just need to do an awareness campaign. We've seen a lot of markets. Some parents are leaving markets in droves. Some parents are coming to markets in droves. So that's different opportunities as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of what you were talking about there is it's very true. That there wasn't really this, with Chris and I's background in the school side of things, bringing your digital marketing experience to the table, but knowing these voids that are existent in digital marketing, especially in the K through 12 independent school marketing. Chris, you could probably speak on this a lot, through, maybe bringing the audience into those kind of beginning stages of our thought process on why we created this company and how we started this, and really what kind of holes we noticed and tried to fill through, bringing on an expert digital marketer, strategizing this whole plan, talking about annual projects rather than ad hoc, kind of go give them some feedback into that process.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this stemmed from late night conversations you and I would have about kind of what the trends are in enrollment. Why aren't we doing certain ways in here to reach folks? And a lot of it had to do with what we were doing on the political side, right? Yeah. Kind of how we're reaching our target audience, the tools and techniques that we had. And I think, for the majority of K through 12 independent schools, their go-to check the box for digital marketing has been Facebook, right? And, even that has layers of complexity, whether you're doing it correctly or not. But, I think for the most part, they've got a handle on, okay, Facebook, right? Well, that's not the end all be all when it comes to digital marketing. You have to take a holistic approach to that, from being able to reach people beyond that through whether it be programmatic media, the rise, which is the same thing almost, the rise of CTV and other platforms to be able to get your content out in front of prospective families. And I don't think a lot of schools are taking this holistic approach and really understanding where the generation of their prospective families are from the standpoint of how they consume information, right? That's our job is, where are these prospective families consuming their information? It's marketing 101. And how do we get our product in this situation, our clients and their schools? How do we get their story? How do we get that narrative in front of prospective families that will be a unique and great match for those communities? And so that has been the challenge from a standpoint of mapping this out. Also, it's been a little bit of an educational process. I've enjoyed, not to ring the bell a little bit here, but I enjoy the open house and getting a lot of folks from around the industry to come on, talk about the industry, talk about their perspective on what's going on, their experience with digital marketing. And I think the one thing that we've shown is it's a full spectrum of people that not been doing it to people that are really kind of on the cutting edge in this industry. The one takeaway I will say too is that this industry is lagging as a whole, right? Of the overall capabilities that's out there, say, quote unquote, corporate American, what they're doing, Fortune 500 companies and the abilities that they have. And so I think that, a lot of this is being able to work with our clients, get them up to speed, and understand that we've turned the page. The techniques of marketing and how you communicating with this generation of families, the old run a newspaper ad, do direct mail, put a commercial on TV. While there is some effectiveness to those mediums, it's also a resource issue where it's going to cost you a lot more to do that, where versus doing digital marketing, a lot more efficient, a lot more cost effective. And I think it's a little bit more powerful because all of us are on this all the time, right? It's never out of hand reach for me, right? And so how I'm consuming data and information, and that's how it is. So, I think to answer your question, I think one of the holes, the plug is really kind of, walking into Charlie's Chocolate Factory and they'd be like, wow, this is all possible. Yes. Like we haven't been hiding this. This is available. How do we bring that to their attention so that they're more able to utilize their resources? And not to mention, COVID has kind of just sped this up dramatically, right?
Yeah.
The old fashioned of ways of how to do it. People are a lot more open to new ideas and how to stretch their dollar, which Marc can talk about this. But when it comes to dollar for dollar, digital marketing still by far is the most efficient and cheaper way to do it. Not only is it more cost effective, it's also better from being able to get them essentially down the enrollment funnel. So anyway.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And
I think to that point, go
ahead, Marc.
Launching this in COVID meant that schools were dealing with very different communications issues, and were sometimes called a little flat-footed in terms of in some markets, public schools were in person, and the private school had a really great distance learning plan, or it was reverse. And we had to very quickly figure out how to communicate those things to people, especially when we're seeing in some markets parents moving in droves, and you stand in front of them and have them make a decision about school, almost like just when they immediately move there.
Yep. And it is, and there is a lot of that last minute, decision making when they're moving to a new area and things like that. And everyone is migrating, and we'll kind of get to this later in the show, but there's some serious migration patterns that are happening and has been happening, and it got accelerated by COVID. Chris, to your point, I laugh every Monday when I'm on the show talking about some sort of advertisement or things, and it reminds me to go check the mail, because as a millennial, I never check the mail. There's no reason for me to check the mail. Everything's online. All my bills are paid online. So I'm like, oh yeah, let me go look at the mailbox.
Hold on a second. Let me make a note. I check mail after.
But that's the market. You're right. You know what I mean? Like, we're the parents that are our young ones. We're that next generation, and it's true. Like those print mailers, they lose a lot of notice, and it's really, there's no way to track it. It's not as an effective tool. And I got to tell you,
how do you close the circle, right, on a mailer? They have to pick this up.
Yeah,
they have to go to their laptop, right?
Yeah.
Right. I doubt they're going to call the number. Like, millennials and Gen Zs are like to get them to make a phone call is very difficult for them. Some have anxiety over it. And I'm not trying to be light of it. Like, they'd rather text or digitally interface, right? Whether get their consumption versus a chat, or email or text, some kind of text function. So it's a dead end from a funnel perspective, right? They've got to now change medians. Right, they got to take that mailer, and they've got to go pick one of these up or go to their computer and then complete the process. And that's that within itself is an entire different issue versus back in the day, you could go to the school, walk in, make a walk-in tour appointment, or you pick up the phone and make an appointment, right? Now it's changed. The game has changed.
Yeah, and it's pretty unnecessary, like you were saying. Don't change the medium. We can bring you straight from this advertisement to the admissions office without you having to change, what you're using there. And I got to tell you, what I've noticed a lot in the past few months with schools is they are all aware of this transition. I don't think I've noticed anyone that's not aware of the transition, but how they're approaching it has varied quite differently. And through these webinars and talks, staying up to date on everything. I mean, they're talking about this content marketing, inbound marketing, creating pieces, having a digital infrastructure, and having a digital presence. This is all important things. But it really is kind of getting thrown around into a lot of different arenas, maybe even different personnels on campus. And it's not really coming together as a whole unit or a plan or strategy. And I think that what I've noticed the most is there's a clear, I guess the word I'm looking for is there's a clear understanding and there's a clear acceptance of what the world and the market is changing to, but not so much a clear strategy on how to approach that market and what's most effective. And I think a lot of that, to your point, comes to they don't understand a lot of the tactics that are available to them. And they're just starting to learn of those reaches. Outside of Facebook, there's not really much that they're doing so much other than Google AdWords. So, broadening that horizon, every call that we have, it seems to be a little bit more of informing them of some other tactics and opportunities that are readily available for them.
I would push back just a little. Oh, go ahead, Mark. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing too is really understanding the goals at each stage of the funnel, or even understanding the funnel at all. In digital, we're constantly trying to raise awareness. So it's like reach is the first stage. So you just want people to know that you even exist. You want people to act. You want to capture their email. You want to be able to get them to your website. So you can retarget them. You want to convert them, and that could be they download a brochure, they somehow enter your email funnel, right? And then that could then lead to an application. And then engage would be you're trying to get anyone who's already converted and sent their kids to school to spread word of mouth of you about you. And when you have like admissions, their goal is to get applications. They may fund a campaign, and it's like, okay, people are going to click the ad, and we're going to send them right to the application page. Well, if no one's heard of the school, what are they applying for? Come in, and it's like we're trying to align different KPIs and goals with each stage of the funnel, so that if you're spending a few $1,000s on a reach campaign, the only thing you're really caring about is clicks and views. No one's going to be worried about the number of applications received. And I think educating the schools on that process and having our experience to come in that we've done this before and it works. It's a very scary thing. There's a lot of fear involved when you're spending money on a campaign, and maybe you hired a one-off Facebook vendor who did a campaign and it didn't work, but maybe the goals weren't aligned. That audience was in the stage of the funnel.
Right.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, and like I was saying earlier, pushback, and I think Mark kind of articulated a little bit of my sentiment around, I think that there still is an education process in this industry. I think that the clients we work with, the folks we talk to, the ones that come on this show, have an understanding that this is where the market's moved. And I promised I'd be nice, but all those people that don't set up meetings are not interested, that they don't know that this is where the trend is moving, right? They're still kind of stuck in that traditional media type of approach. And I think the more that we can do, hence why I love your idea around doing the open house, Jesse, is this idea of educating the industry that whether you use us or a company like us, like this is where we are now with admissions and creating a digital enrollment funnel. And so, I think that is still something that we're going to be doing, this year, the next year, and the year beyond that, until people start to catch up. Or unfortunately, some schools, we've talked about this in other shows, some schools might not catch up. And unfortunately, that might be all she wrote. And so I think the schools that are going to be able to be competing, staying ahead of the curve, making the budget, those are the ones that are turning to digital marketing and making those investments now. So I don't mean to be the Grim Reaper. Let's give a reality check here to what the market really does look like.
Well, and another thing too is what we've started to notice is that it's not always the direct person that handles enrollment that needs the education. We've had conversations with plenty of people that get it. They're bored or they're just not on board. It's just you're trying to get them to move, and they move a little bit, and sometimes it's not so much in their hands. Everyone has a boss. In the independent school world, it's the board. So if you can get them, if they're involved on those kind of big level decision makings, you're going to be having to talk with them as well, and selling that need and having them understand sometimes can be a challenge for admissions directors.
I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just stating the fact.
So, I guess, I kind of talked a little bit about, what I've seen and noticed. We've all kind of touched on some topics of what we've noticed through our calls. I'd love to hear, especially Marc, if you want to talk a little bit on the back end side of things. When we throw these campaigns out, there's been. I love what I do, especially now, because it's so new in so many ways that the results are so above industry normals, because no one's living in this space so much. But how are we seeing it help schools having this kind of digital infrastructure, making sure that we're expanding outside of just Facebook and Google? What have we seen? How have we seen that benefit schools? Kind of more on a gauging side. Like when we're looking at the results.
Sure. I mean, one of the biggest drivers has been, we've mentioned a couple of times, programmatic media. And for those who don't understand what that is exactly, you may have heard of it, but functionally it's hard to concept. But basically, when Facebook and Google started, they basically said, hey, Jesse, hey, Chris, give us $1 and we'll run your ads. It's all self-serve. You can do it yourself. Please don't ever talk to us. And then kind of an ecosystem of experts came in and would help people with these campaigns that they couldn't do them themselves. And when it became very popular, initially when you first started doing Facebook and Google ads, they were very, very cheap. And that really grabbed a lot of headspace and market share in terms of small businesses and small companies and schools and the like. And then Facebook and Google went out to the major advertising agencies and said, hey, this works, give us millions of dollars. Well, when millions of dollars comes in from Best Buy and Amazon, now the price goes up. But at the same time, smaller businesses haven't known what an alternative to those ecosystems is. For them, that is the internet, that is digital advertising, and it's actually a very small fraction of it. The bulk of the inventory is what's called programmatic. Back in the old days of the internet, buying banner ads was done very much the same way as buying television commercials, where you'd go out and have a couple of martinis with a sales rep and negotiate a multi-million-dollar deal. But now banner ads are basically bought and sold like stock trades. All the inventory is into like maybe 30 different publishing networks, including Google. And then there's 80 different data providers with 10,000 different points of data. And these all come together into our platform and are mixed and matched. So like if you go to any website and you're a parent and we have that data on you, then in real time, it's called the real-time bidding, an auction takes place where all the people that are targeting you for any reason, you like to buy Lexuses, you're looking for a financial planner, or you're a parent, the highest bid wins that parent, and the banner is shown. So this goes across banner ads, it goes across native advertising, which is like those things that look like articles that are sponsored results on a news site, videos, as Chris mentioned, CTV, which is being able to show commercials on Hulu, on any kind of connected device spot. And we can target everyone based on the data, whether they've come to the website, whether we know they're a parent. We can even target based on if they have multiple kids. And the most powerful thing that we've done is we geofence competing schools, including public schools, or tutoring centers, learning centers, school.
Mhm.
You know, it's a really good indication that if they're probably primed to consider a private school.
Yeah, and I would say that switch from public to private. I mean, we've talked about it on the show, and a lot of our guests have reinforced that conversation's happening a lot more frequently than it was in previous years. So being able to get in front of those families now, show them that value, give them the value proposition, show them those different options that they have for their child's education. It's so crucial. And we all live on Facebook, and obviously we all use Google, but if I'm searching for, homedepot.com and I'm looking for something, to build a garden because spring's coming around, sorry for anyone else that's not in Florida and still have a few months of winter, but spring started here. So,
I got a question. Will you be wearing that sweater when you're gardening?
No. This is for the show. This is because I keep it nice and cold in the house.
All right. Just checking.
That's the Florida AC bills. It's like the heat for up north. So, but to be able to be marketed with options that I might not have considered before anywhere that I am online is a great ability, and I agree. I think it's helped out a lot, especially when you're trying to create messaging that resonates. Sometimes you don't really know that, and when you have an abundance of places and that you're able to reach your target market, you'll actually be able to effectively be able to test out different messages that come through, which has been a great advantage for a lot of schools. And then, like you said, that geofencing. I mean, you can create an ad for music now, and then geofence music schools, and you can have a different ad for athletics and target athletic places, and then you can have a general ad that goes everywhere. And the way you can get detailed and narrow down that strategy and drive them all into the funnel in the same manner has been a huge help that I've seen on schools' ends. I mean, Chris, you could probably speak more on what we've seen on the budgetary side coming from the development aspect of it. But, when you talk about efficiency, when you talk about ROI, I mean, there's not really much better opportunities than digital marketing for sure, especially when you're comparing it with regular print and the ways of the old. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that and what we've seen on that front.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, even with some of these type of mediums that we have the ability to place advertising on digitally, compared to some traditional media, you're talking at a quarter or a third of the cost, right? And a lot of this, if not a little bit more cost effective than that. And so I think as schools take a look at their budgets and how they want to allocate advertising dollars. I think when we started this and we had that mentality of no time like the present, right? As the COVID, pandemic hit, schools were kind of like, oh crap, what is this going to do to our budgets? Re-enrollment contracts that have been filled, now people are backing out of, right? Mm-hmm. And how do we not only try to save this next budget year without layoffs, but at the same time, try to make sure that the current enrollment cycle we were in 21-22, we were able to hit our numbers. And so depending on where you were in the country was microcosms, right? Of what was happening, whether they were getting influxes of students because of the way the laws in public schools were going, or they weren't. Whether they had to go virtual, whether they could be in person or hybrid, it was like really case by case. And so that really played hectic on their budget. And so when you're looking at spending dollars to get an ROI, I think there's, give kudos to Mark, this random act of marketing is a lot more expensive, right? When you don't have a strategy that is very holistic, an entire year, or if you're in the middle of a strategic planning, or you have a strategic plan in place year over year, what your goals are, you build this $4 or $5 million facility upper school or middle school, there comes a certain number on the back end. Okay, we need to increase enrollment or maintain enrollment. So what is the goals to do that? Not just, hey, when we get there, I guess we'll throw some money at it, right? And I'm being a little bit more simplistic, but our experience is that has really been kind of the norm in this industry. And so that's a lot more expensive versus, the kind of reach strategy that we deploy, where, you reach, you brand, then you try to work them down their funnel. And so I think it becomes a lot more cost effective around the board. We also are able to help them on creatives and kind of build that narrative and storytelling lines in there. That's a lot more cost effective than, say, traditional media. Whereas if you want to tell a story or a sequence, right? You think of the amount of money you'd have to outlay on TV commercials, right? Think of the amount of money you would have to lay on in a 6, 7, 8, 10-piece mail program, right? To tell a story, right? Where digitally, we're able to do that. We're able to do that very effectively. We're able to have multiple campaigns going on simultaneously because we're able to, from a data standpoint, tell where these folks are and how engaged they are and what is that next call to action. And so that really becomes a lot more crystallized when you're sitting down and you're making a budget. Okay, based on this campaign that we did last year and the amount of return or the amount of applications or inquiries that we got, we can factor in that this is our cost to meet these certain goals, right? So now you're not thinking kind of in the here and now. Now you're using historical data, and understanding of what it's going to cost to get a certain amount of students in, either to maintain or to grow. And so I think from a budget standpoint, if you do it correctly, and we always say this in the office, trust the process, right? If you trust the process, you're going to be able to be a lot more efficient with your marketing dollars. And then those dollars can go elsewhere into capital projects, into staff, into resources, into the students themselves, whatever that may be, or tuition reset, which I know you're going to be talking about next week, Jesse, so I don't want to steal thunder. But, a lot of schools and a few of our clients have considered or are in the middle of tuition reset campaigns. And so a lot of this plays on each other. So you've got to be creative. And I think doing digital marketing, I know doing digital marketing allows you to be a lot more flexible and a lot more smart about the dollars that you're spending.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, we kind of touched on it a little bit, but to transition to kind of the next topic, but, the way that you're able to, reach out to families out there these days and how you're able to put them in different pieces of the funnel, how that benefits your enrollment models or your strategic plans as a school, how you're able to raise funds for those capital projects, keep enrollment going. All of those things kind of come into play on how digital marketing can help. And that kind of gets us into our next piece, talking about tactics that are available, and this is where I was talking a little bit earlier. When we have these discussions, they might have heard about one of these tactics or, maybe seen something about it or maybe never heard it at all. But, the way that you can creatively build out advertisements, it's just not as simple as just a banner. Sometimes there could be video, sometimes there could be expandable banners, sometimes there's interactions that you'll be able to have. You incorporate landing pages. Where are we sending them? And this whole step-by-step process, geofencing. Marc, if I can throw you on here and put you on the spot a little bit to go into a little bit more of detail on some of those tactics that are really really working well for independent schools, at least in our campaigns that we're doing.
Sure. So one of the big contrasts with Facebook, which I'll add is actually really good for some things in the enrollment funnel. But one of the things Facebook does is narrow the audience in Facebook, the more they tend to charge you for it. So when you actually build a pixel with your Facebook audience to retarget, the smaller that is, the more they actually charge you to retarget. Whereas in programmatic, once you've built the pixel and it's your own first-party data, it is your data. You own it, and you don't get charged for it anymore. So we're only being charged for the cost of inventory. So, like for example, if a CPM on a display ad is $6, normally we would pay a couple dollars in data on top of that to target parents with 3 kids or someone with a high household income, and combine all of those things together. And what we'll do is we'll actually embed a pixel in a video, and we'll show that video to those parents, and anybody who viewed that video we know is in that target is now pixeled. So we're only making a really big spend in data once, and then we're retargeting everybody, whether they've gone to the website or they just watched this video. And that's been really powerful for us, because once we have that first party data and we've built that pixel in a market for a brand, we can do anything, any stage of the funnel that we want to. We can create another pixel. People view a second video, have gone to the website, have gone to specific pages, and really start to get nuanced in like how we communicate and when. And the other thing is that one of the biggest opportunities we've had is adding in that creativity piece. Some schools have a really, really well
Yeah.
or oriented towards existing parents, not new parents, not prospective. They're not really looking as a marketing tool. So when you go to the website, like, what does it say about your school? Or
Right.
you're actually
Right.
one of the videos. So we keep repeating the same thing over and over to schools: is sell the dream, because tuition for a student isn't this like logical, rational choice necessarily. It's like not like, oh, I'm going to spend all this money on my kid, and one day he's going to be really rich and famous because he went to this private school and got a great education. It's the emotion of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that dream of one of our schools has produced a couple of NBA stars, MLB stars. It's like, hey, this is a possibility for your kid, and what does that mean? And that can be priceless. Parents
Right.
find a way to get that money. A lot better if it's an emotional decision than it's a rational nuts and bolts one.
Chris, I think your mic went out, buddy. But yeah, I think
we're having some technical issues on this show, but it's okay. We're making it through. Sorry about that. I was saying, you think people would make a lot more intelligent decisions when it comes to schools, but it's still emotion based. Yes, there is some checking of the boxes, right? Like they are doing X, Y, and Z, but academically. But I think a lot of it is, to your point, completely emotional. From a standpoint of do we fit the school? Does this school fit my child, right?
Yeah.
Versus like, what it's been in the past. And so I agree. I think that there's a lot of emotion that I think even admissions reps still kind of discount.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what we've noticed, and especially with this new generation, we're more principle based, we're more values based in general. Anyways, that's why you have brand loyalty is changing between generations now. These kind of things matter, and how are you relaying that to them? And not only that, our expectation with this, with the millennial generation and beyond. Our expectation is to be interacted in this method. In every other aspect of society, we're being targeted in this method. So why wouldn't it be in independent schools as well? Options for my child to have a better education. I sure get options for everything else, on what, the world and the data providers think that I'm would like and respond to, and usually they're pretty good at that. To be honest with you, I wish I could see some other things, but they've got me in a box, and hey, I don't have to leave the house for anything anymore. But that first party data, to your point, Mark, is so crucial and so important, because you're right. You're able to segment your audience and retarget them based on the interactions that they had, and that's where you start talking into it takes 14 times on average in order for someone to to go through with the product or through with the sale, and that's with small item things. You're not even talking about large tuition based budgets, or even if it wasn't about money, like the weight of, is this right for my child? I mean, as a parent, that's a huge decision maker. So, how many times do you have to interact with them, and how many different ways for them to feel comfortable enough to pick up the phone or to send an email, or to give them the admissions department the email so they can reach out to them and find out more about the school, get on campus. It's crucial to have more than one touch.
I mean, not just that, but like it's what we call a complex sale, because in most cases, if we're selling some sort of widget in e-commerce, it's a personal thing. I see it, I need it, I've interacted with enough times. I've done my research on going to buy it. But in this case, it's I need to talk to my husband. I need to talk to my wife.
Yep.
Get them on board with it. If I've been convinced, if I'm not convinced, maybe it's its own discussion. Maybe then it's like, hey, you gotta tell your kid, hey, we're gonna pull you out of your school. You're gonna like be leaving all your friends, and you're gonna be going to a new place, right? All of those things have to happen. That's a very complicated thing. So your basic household, and also dealing with decision makers at different stages of the process sometimes.
Yeah. And, we're not quite at that stage yet, but I would love the day where they start to debate that in the household, and then we can just kind of chime in through their Google Talk speaker. Like, hey, we hear that you're talking about the XYZ school. Have you checked out their site here? We're working on that. It's kind of speaking on those lines, though. Marc, I know we've had some interesting tactics, and obviously the data providers that we use, and the different demographic and psychographic data that we're able to place for these ads, and really just kind of put them in there. We've been discovering these migration changes, and that's kind of talking about how those kind of data sets can play into each other. This is one of those examples. What have you been seeing with some of those migration changes? That schools should really be utilizing as best they can to stay on top of.
So we just sort of discovered anecdotally from working with a lot of clients in different places where they were seeing an influx, like Florida and Arkansas. That I think we sort of led us to the question of, like, how can we really growth hack this trend? Because also we're working with schools in New York where everybody's leaving, right? And so that's a whole other challenge. But if someone, I guess my first question was, if someone's moving to Florida, where are they coming from? And so we looked at Google Trends, and we saw, like, if someone's searching information about moving to Florida, that it tended to come from New York and places like Colorado, Oregon, and California. And California is interesting because a lot of people are moving there, and a lot of people are moving away at the same time.
Yep.
And then a lot of people are moving to Texas, and believe it or not, they're moving to Hawaii and Alaska a lot. So in each of those states, you can find out where these searches coming from, and preemptively start targeting parents in those states to build your brand before they move. Because once they move, it might already be too late. They've already made a decision. Maybe they did a Google search. Maybe they got a referral from a friend there. You just never know. Maybe they just committed to public school for the first year. But if you can build that brand in advance, it's a really good growth hack.
Yeah, and I think that's also, one of the first stages that we do when we onboard a client. Is we do an audit, right? I think a lot of these schools need to understand their digital infrastructure. And so when people are moving to an area, are they looking for educational opportunities for their children? How are they positioned, right? How are they positioned in that market? Are they going to be identified? Are they going to be pulled up? And then also, if you have a firm like us or another firm that has similar capabilities, you're able to kind of place them in front of these people that are looking to move into these areas. And so instead of being reactive, you're proactive. And like I said, it kind of makes full circle with your budget and planning. You're a lot more on the front end than you are trying to play catch up with how you're spending your dollars and positioning yourself. And understanding these trends are crucial in that aspect.
Yeah, you definitely have to stay on top of those things. And there are a lot of different ways that you can go about it. Like you said, Chris, kind of hitting them in their hometown where they come through. Obviously, we've had some of our most, the best numbers with interactions through that, new mover data that comes in. And then, again, they just got to town. Here's this new school that comes to them. And now they're in the pixel. Kind of to Marc's point, we can retarget them with different ways. Hey, they watched this video. They didn't watch this one. Let's get them more with this interest topic. And we just keep moving them down the funnel until they get on campus. Because, in essence, even with some of the schools that have virtual tours, it's really getting in front of those admissions representatives, if you can get them on campus so that they can feel the atmosphere and the environment, it's difficult to say no. I mean, I've been on several campuses. They're all beautiful in their own ways. And if you have an interest and it's enough to where my generation, 80% of the sales process is done before I contact you, because I'm going to research on my own. I'm going to look at reviews, and all that's going to be done before you even know I'm looking. The stealth applicant, this is not going anywhere. So if I've already made that choice at this point to come onto campus, I mean, that's how you close them.
Yeah, you essentially don't blow it at that point.
Yeah,
You've got
kind of make it work.
They want you to close themselves. I think the other point too, I would mention on that too, is not all public school districts are created equal. And I'm not going to mention states, right? But when you're moving from like the third best school state or district to like the 47th, right?
Yep.
You come to find out real quick what the difference is between number 3 and 47. And while you might not have been looking for a private school option, it becomes very clear that you start to look in that direction because, unfortunately, of the current public school system. And so that's another alternative or another avenue that we're seeing with folks move and then almost immediately start looking because they're not happy with what their child is getting. And so, that's the other thing is like, what is out of the control or what is the environment, right? That may benefit your school to attract a family that normally might not be in the market, where based on a lot of other indicators, they actually are. And so that's where, you've got to make sure you're continuing to stay top of mind to folks that are still engaging in your content, right? And that's the other thing is like, we know exactly where people are engaging, what are they doing, to Mark's point, how long are they watching videos, right? You can't tell me how long someone watches a commercial and who they were, right? You can't tell me how long Jesse Meadow, when he goes to check his mail after this show, looked at a particular, mail piece and whether he went to the website or not, right? With digital, you can do all of those things. And so I think those are the things that you've got to stay on top of trends from a school standpoint. And, that's where it comes back to, firms like us, like Schoolcraft Digital, where, a lot of schools don't have the financial ability to bring this in-house, nor would I recommend them to, right? The dynamic, and Mark knows this, 25 years of being in this industry, it constantly changes. Like, I feel like I'm pretty up to date on what's going on. And 2 or 3 or 4 months, if I'm not on top of it, or at least talking to Mark about what's going on, I'm lost. Now I'm the guy in the corner, like, I don't know what's going on, right? But that's how quick this moves. And so, schools don't have the resources to stay on top of trends and how best to position themselves. And so that's why Fortune 500 companies, small businesses, universities, and colleges, they partner with firms. And I use the word partner because I think that's important, right? We are not just a transactional set it and forget it situation. This is an evolving thing that we're doing. And so that's how I think schools have to look at it, is that this landscape constantly changes, right? Yes, the mail system has pretty much been the same for the last 20 years, right? The digital does not stay that way, right? I always tell people that if Facebook folded up, went bankrupt, right? If Google went out of business, I would not lose 1 minute of sleep, right? Because people are not going to go lock themselves up in a closet somewhere. They're going to go elsewhere, consume content, consume information. And so our job is to know where those trends are, to know where our prospective families are. So at the end of the day, we can get our client's story and that in front of them so that they can make informed decisions. To Jesse's point, where they've 80% there, now they just want to go make sure that the campus looks as pretty as it does on the website, right? And that the admissions person checks some of the boxes that they mentally want to get checked, right? And then and now you've got a new family. And so I think that is the importance of staying on top of things. That's the importance, I think, of working with a firm like ourselves, so that you're constantly ahead of the curve, not playing catch up or miss the boat entirely.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And to, more to add on to your point a little bit, if schools, if schools aren't realizing this yet, it is going to be impossible to keep up with something like this with one staff member or two. Like you will need to try to interact and partner with someone to help you navigate this landscape. So if you're not already thinking about budgeting that in, that's definitely something to be, put on the docket for the budgets that are coming, in next year and beyond. So, but I think we've got. Go ahead.
And to that point, the ability to be behind the dashboard of so many different schools gives us the ability to really give schools confidence that what they're doing is going to work, or that what they're seeing is normal. I think one of the toughest things for an internal marketer to school is not knowing what the benchmarks are, not knowing what to expect, not knowing that it might be normal to not get clicks on the initial brand awareness campaign, but then start to see them at a much higher rate later. It's very easy to just go, this isn't working, and bail without having experience. And the other thing is we've talked a lot about some of the challenges schools have and some of the weaknesses they have in their marketing. And we've also found things that we learned from them, new tools, new techniques. The tuition reset that we're going to be talking about next week was a fantastic, successful school we did it for. How to market different sports programs. A lot of times these schools have a reputation. It's like they're not diverse, they're not affordable. So what are the financial options to be able to afford if you can't afford a school? All those different things can kind of get cross-pollinated across campaigns in a really positive way that helps the whole industry.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crucially important, and I agree. We've learned a lot, through the process, moving through that process with our clients, and as well. We're able to meet that, and the kind of the Chris's point. That's the importance of that partnership, because once we learn something, we have tactics and background knowledge and experience to be able to implement changes on the fly. And that's why it's so important to know that, if there's one overarching theme with digital marketing, is that it's not, you just throw it out there and let it ride like a mailer or a newspaper ad. There's constant optimization. There's constant, there's different people in different parts of the funnel. What messages, how are you segmenting? What is the branding and the messaging that you're getting out there? And at what time in the decision-making process? All that can be played with in digital marketing. And so, I think we had a very good show, brainstorming with you two is always a pleasure, but that was, I think, very insightful for anyone that was listening or that will be listening with our replay. So, I really appreciate the insights, guys. We'll keep up the good fight and, keep reinventing ourselves and finding new ways to get those messages out there. I really appreciate you guys diving into the tactics and strategies of, how this is really helping schools out.
Absolutely. And the best thing about all this is you can do it anywhere. So like during the summer, Jesse will be coming live from the beach. And so
truthfully told, it's not saying much. Well, I'm in Florida, so I got to go an hour and a half the other way.
We should at some point probably talk about remote work. I know Mark and I talk about this all the time about how that industry's expanding, but another topic for another day. But Jesse, as always, it's been great catching up and talking about this. We could do it for hours.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been great recapping what we've learned. I mean, it's like you take a step back and go, wow, we accomplished a lot since we started. So exciting.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. And as they kind of alluded to, we do have a great show coming up next week. We're going to be talking about tuition resets. If it's on the mind, if it's been done already, please stay tuned. Throw some comments in there. We've got two great guests that have implemented it in their respective schools, and we're going to hear from them about that whole process. So tune in next week, Monday at 1 p.m. You can catch this episode, the full episode, on schoolcraftdigital.com. We also have our YouTube channel, Schoolcraft Digital, and as always, go to Schoolcraft Digital social sites on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and like us and stay tuned. Thanks.